And we're live, everybody. Welcome in. It is Monday, January 22nd, 2:45 p.m. Central. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Mine was phenomenal. It was my birthday, and I had my friends over. Oh, so fun. So much to talk about. Let's go ahead and get started right away. So, if you follow Tesla closely, you know, maybe, I'm guessing yes, that Tesla's latest version of their full self-driving software is now live and in the hands of some customers. This is a video from Omar's catalog on X. You can also find them on YouTube. Thank you, Omar, for sharing this video. This is the newest version of the self-driving software driving itself. It's a little bit sped up, as you can see, but we're getting some initial feedback from the software from users. Here you can see it's navigating around some emergency trucks, some emergency vehicles, some people, and all of this, as you can see, is done with zero intervention when it comes to the steering wheel and the pedals. As you can see, there's nothing going on. So this is just the car driving itself. Now, if you follow the Tesla story closely, you know that Tesla has been doing this for a little while now, for a few years. But really, the big difference here is that now we have there's a version out there from Tesla where the AI brain, let's call it an AI brain, is making all the decisions for the car, and it's no longer human code. So everything that you see on the screen is handled by an artificial intelligence computer that has been fed millions upon millions of clips of videos and situations, and the artificial intelligence computer has figured out how to make this car drive just from a bunch of data. Now, this is a really, really, really big deal, because what this implies is that Tesla now has essentially finalized the methodology as it pertains to how they're building the foundation for their solution for self-driving, which is going to be around 8 cameras and a computer in the car that is fed by an AI brain. Now, from my standpoint, the way I'm thinking about this, and this is sort of where I want to focus a lot of my time on this video, is I'm going to be looking for very specific things from the software suite that is going to essentially prove to me that Tesla is indeed, or has indeed, solved self-driving. The CEO of the company, Elon Musk, has made commentary that this version should be out of beta, meaning that this version should be one of the very first truly ready for full release candidates for the self-driving software, which also implies that Tesla is essentially solving for self-driving technology using their solution. So what are the things that I'm looking for when I download the software in my car? Hopefully in the next week or two, at which point you'll also be able to see the footage. I'll make sure to upload all of this on my channel. So the first thing I'm going to be looking for is comfort. So comfort is a gigantic piece of the puzzle as it pertains to full self-driving for Teslas. If you think about being in a car, and I've had people try out my current version of full self-driving, which does extremely well. It does basically all of my driving for me, but it's not perfect. There are some situations where I have to step in. The comfort piece is part of that. Sometimes it might make a jerky motion. Sometimes it might do something that feels unnatural or inhuman. Theoretically, this version 12 software should solve for that, because it's taking human data, human footage, and making that be the way the car drives. So we should see a lot more human-like driving. From people like Omar and other folks that have gotten the software, that's the kind of feedback I'm hearing, is that the software is extremely human. It feels like a human, and humans like cars that are driven by humans because it's predictable. It's, safety is one thing. The car getting you to a place is one thing safely, but almost as important, if anything more important than the safety, is the comfort, because comfort is the variable that allows you to trust the car. If you think about any Uber driver, you're not really worried about, oh, this guy's going to crash. Well, maybe you are, but really what you're worried about is like, okay, man, this guy's driving kind of crazy. We might crash. I don't feel comfortable, right? So this is where this software has a chance to take this up to a completely different level, because it's using a lot of human, really just strictly human footage. So that's number one. I'm going to be looking specifically for comfort. As we go into number two, if you do have a question for me, drop it in the comment section below as we're going through it on the live stream, in the live chat, and I'll answer a couple questions at the end. And if you're on recording, thank you so much for stopping in. You can pull up the live chat just to keep up with us. So in case you want to see what people are saying. The second thing I'm going to be looking for is rate of improvement. So this one really is, I would argue, probably the biggest variable we're looking for in this newest software from Tesla for FSD v12. Rate of improvement. Why is this so important? in the past, before version 12, Tesla's software is what's called using human-like code. So they've had to write in a lot of situations where they're saying, hey, this is a stop sign, stop for the stop sign. This is a traffic light, stop for the traffic light. And so what that introduces is that you now have to account for every single variation or permutation that exists in the real world, and somebody has to literally code that into the software. Somebody has to say, if I'm in the right lane and there's a dude on a bike that's about to approach that might, get into my path, but I have a green light and there's this car right next to me doing something weird, somebody has to account for all of those roughly. With version 12, all you have to do is just give it the data. You just have to give it the video, and then of cars being in those situations, and then the AI computer will just figure out how to handle that situation. It's basically like offloading the amount of work somebody has to do to code self-driving, and you're offloading that work onto an artificial intelligence brain. And so from that standpoint, theoretically, there should be no artificial limit, meaning that there should be nothing that is keeping you from completing self-driving unless you have some form of limitation from, say, hardware, right? Maybe you're missing a camera. Maybe your computer is not fast enough. Maybe your camera resolution is not good enough. Things like that. So in theory, the rate of improvement for the software, the thing I'm going to really be looking for is how much better is version 12.9 versus version 12.1, which is the version that's out there right now. This will tell me if Tesla has finally figured out, if they finally gotten to a point where they're saying, hey, we feel very comfortable with this. This is clearly going to work. We should see super rapid improvement month to month, week to week, year to year, as it pertains to the software, because all they have to do is just take the data, dump it into the computer, and the computer will just figure it out, right? That's one of the things I'm looking for. The other thing I'm looking for as well is the rate of disengagements. So a disengagement in full self-driving software basically means that you take over the wheel, you take over the pedals because the car is doing something wrong. So I expect this, if we're really truly at the point where full self-driving version 12 is going to work, I expect this to go to essentially 0, meaning that once I download the software and I use it over time, the amount of times I have to take over should go to 0. Right now, I have to take over maybe once every, I don't know, let's call it in the city scenario, once every 50 miles to 100 miles. In a highway scenario is like once every 1,000 miles. But that should go to like 0, right? That should go to 0, because what that implies is that now this is ready to be what would be called a level 3 or level 4 autonomous system, which means that you no longer need a human to drive the car drives itself. And for that to happen, you need 0 disengagements. So for version 12, whichever iteration we get to that can do that, hopefully the first one, I expect this number to be very close to, if not 0, for thousands of miles. And that is really the key metric that says this is complete, in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking for very, 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 very hard. Now, it's kind of interesting to think about that this solution, again, for people that follow Tesla very closely, this day feels weird because the company has been saying this is going to happen for the last 6 years. It looks like it might be happening finally. This is a solution that's driven only by 8 cameras and a computer. And I just kind of conceptualize this for you, why this is such a big deal for the long-term success of this software as it pertains to Tesla specifically. And I don't want this to be any financial investment advice. I'm just talking about how I'm thinking about the company. If you take a competitor like Waymo, so this is a Waymo self-driving car. They're extremely popular in places like San Francisco and Austin. They do a phenomenal job of driving people from point A to point B fully autonomously. These guys are legitimate level 4 self-driving companies because there's no driver at the wheel. The car drives itself. But the sensor suite it needs, hopefully you can see my mouse. They have this giant thing at the top. They have these sensors on the sides. They have these things on the bumpers back here. All of these things are needed for the car to do that. And if you think about it like, okay, from a size perspective, for every single self-driving car that Waymo has to put out there, they need to come up with, say, a pallet size. So a pallet is like, one of those things, those wooden things that people put stuff, people put things on top of and they put in a truck. They need that size of pallet that's probably going to weigh 500 to, I don't know, 1,000 pounds, however much this stuff weighs. Probably not 1,000, but like, say, 250 to 500 pounds. And you need to add that many parts and weight to every single car that drives itself. If you compare that to how Tesla's approaching this, here is a picture from Eric on X. I just want to show this for scale, just the huge difference. This is the computer that's in the car, this thing right here in his hand, that processes the information the car sees. So it has one of those in the car. So it's about, I don't know, call it 1.5 feet by a foot-ish. And then the car has 8 cameras. So here's one of the cameras. And here you can see a thumb right here just to show you the scale. The car has 8 of these cameras around the car that take in the data. So you have a 1.5 feet by foot computer that weighs maybe 10, 15 pounds. And you have 8 of these cameras that are no bigger than this, you know, that weigh, I don't know, an ounce. And you need 8 of those compared to this, right? So then you think about what Tesla has potentially figured out here is that instead of having to outfit every single car with 500 pounds plus of weight and giant parts, all they need to do is fill up a box that's, say, 15 inches by 15 inches with parts, and then that car can drive itself, right? And so what is the huge win there for a company like Tesla is scale. Scale becomes a gigantic advantage for a company like Tesla if version 12 is the software that has software for self-driving. And this has been the long, you know, the age-old question when it comes to this, this dynamic with the company is scale. It's not so much can they do it, right? We have a company that has done it. You know, we have companies that have done it. So like Waymo is doing it and they do a phenomenal job at it. Let's make sure Waymo gets the props they deserve. They do a phenomenal job with this technology. But which one's going to be easier to give to every car? This thing that weighs 500 pounds plus it's big and it probably costs tens of thousands of dollars, or a computer that's maybe $1,000 in parts and 8 of these cameras that are, I don't know, like $10 altogether. Like which one's going to be easier to put in every car? And this is where this becomes such a huge deal. If version 12 is the software that Tesla says it's going to be, everything is changed now. Welcome to the new world, okay? If this is actually the case. And that's why I at the beginning of the video, I said these are the 3 things I'm gonna be looking for, because if those 3 things are passed, in my opinion, Tesla is now in this situation where now they have a gigantic scale advantage. They don't, you know, the technology, how you solve for self-driving is not really that big of a deal. Like if the car can do it, and I say that in air quotes because it's obviously a huge deal, but the car driving itself is not the deal. It's the scale. It's how many cars can do this, right? If version 12 is solved, Tesla has won self-driving. Because what this means is that every single car that has those 8 cameras, right? It's every single car that has these 8 cameras and it has this computer can now drive itself. And that is in the millions, y'all. That is in the millions. 2024 could be a very big deal. I'll save that thought for a little bit later. And just to layer something on top of it, let's say version 12 is the holy grail of self-driving for Tesla. Now this lays the groundwork for the bot technology that Tesla is working on, the Optimus bot. And what I'm trying to say here is that if we have data that proves that self-driving is now complete from Tesla, then the humanoid robot becomes a reality, because the humanoid robot is using the same exact foundation that Tesla is using for the self-driving car. The bot is using the same computer, the bot is using the same cameras, and the bot is using the same exact architecture that the self-driving car uses to learn how to drive. So instead of feeding a car computer a bunch of videos of the cars driving, you feed that same exact computer the videos of a human doing something, and then the human or robot learns how to do it. How it learns is a huge breakthrough here, and the scale and how cheap it is to implement at your product, in your product, is even a bigger deal, because you've essentially made the rollout of this technology extremely cheap, which will make it so that a lot of people can experience this very, very quickly. This is it. This is it, all right? I'll close on this thought, and then we'll do a little bit of commentary here, like comments from the group. I'm now at the point where, I'll say it straight up. If Tesla doesn't figure out how to self-drive this year, I think that they're going down the wrong path. Let me put a little bit of like conditions there. There needs to be very obvious improvements with this type of self-driving, this solution for self-driving, that shows that the AI brain is the thing that's figuring it out, right? It's the thing that's actually getting us to self-drive. We need to see that the amount of data that they're collecting is usable and something that's going to work. And we need to see a critical mass of people, let's say in the tens of thousands, that get into a self-driving car from Tesla and they all collectively say, WTF, what just happened? This car drove me to a place and I didn't even think that it was a robot doing it, it was a human doing it. If that happens, right? If that happens in 2024, I think that Tesla is on the right track. If that doesn't happen in 2024, I think we need to sit down and say, what's happening? Like, what are we missing here, And I don't want to I don't want to trivialize this for the company because it's extremely difficult. I fully understand no one else has done it this way. There are companies out there that have done self-driving, but they're doing it with a much more complex, much more expensive way. Tesla's trying to do it so that it's affordable and cheap, and they don't have to pay an arm and a leg to do it, and so that millions of cars can have it immediately. So the approach is completely different. But I think it's important for us to see that breakthrough this year, so that it's obvious that Tesla's on that path. Otherwise, it becomes not obvious. Like, so far, up to this point, for those that follow the company closely, I would argue, it's become quite obvious that this is what it's going to look like over time. But at some point, you got to reach the end goal. And so, if you're a fan of the company, if you follow the company closely, even if you're not a fan of the company, I think 2024 is going to give you a lot of data. It's going to give you a lot of data. Because this thing is it really is a giant deal. I think this is one of those things where Tesla has put its stake in the ground. They've said this is it. Like, version 12 is going to be out of beta. It's going to be incredible. It's going to work, and it's going to blow your mind. In my opinion, I think the trend shows that. I think the trend is pointing towards that. But I will caution that, and I'll use myself as an example, somebody who has been very optimistic about this technology. I would caution to really say that that's the case until you experience that groundbreaking moment for yourself. And that's what I'm most looking forward to with this release. Is I'm fortunate enough to have access to the beta. I'm fortunate enough to be able to download that on my car. And I'm fortunate enough to have this platform to share that with you. So we'll see. We'll see. Do you think this is it? Do you think this is it? Are we going to have one region that's going to be able to do self-driving, 2 regions, 10 regions, the whole world? Who knows? Probably not the whole world. Obviously not the whole world, but some regions. So let's go ahead and try and answer a couple questions before we call it a day. So go ahead and post your questions with writing question right before your question so I can find them very quickly, and we'll get to it here. So let's pull up this one real quick. Seems Cold Snaps in Canada has some charge stations lineups, claim high kilowatts in long wars in lineups, yet, yeah, sorry, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what that is. Please see if you can rewrite that in a little bit different way. It might help me a little bit. Let's see. Can we reach out to James Dalma to see if he would come on again soon? Yeah, so James Dalma is somebody who follows this space very closely. He's an artificial intelligence expert. I would love to invite him on my channel once I have the hardware and software on my hands. So once I get version 12 and I test it for myself, I would love to get him on the channel and discuss it with him. From Hopper, question, would FSD fail? What would that mean for the bot? Yeah, so this kind of goes to sort of what I was talking about. If version 12 turns out to be the software we all think it's going to be, then the implication for bot is massive. If it's not, then I think the question becomes, okay, for the bot specifically, do you really need that level of safety for the bot to be successful? Because if you really think about driving, you're in a missile, you're in a steel missile, you're in a 2,000-pound missile where the missiles are separated by an imaginary barrier that we've painted on a road, on the ground, and then we're just saying, hey, don't cross that line because otherwise someone will die, right? Is that more high stakes than a thing that can walk around and, you know, pick stuff up? It seems like that's way more high stakes. Like that's way riskier, right? So in my opinion, I think one can make the argument that the bot is a little bit easier to solve than the car. But if the car is solved, the bot is solved. That's the way I'm thinking about it. If the car is not solved, then the bot may be solved. But we will have to ask more questions if you're somebody that's interested in that technology. That's how I'm framing it. This is a very interesting question from Raymond. Why not try level 3 first with no nag? Who needs to approve? The Highway Safety Administration? So that's a great question, and I think that's one that Tesla is going to they should approach, because right now, if you think about their strategy, they have a level 2 system. So for those that are not familiar, for self-driving technology, you have essentially 5 levels. You have level 1 and 2, which is basically the person needs to pay attention, is responsible for the car. Level 3 is the car will take the responsibility away from you. It will say, hey, I got this, you don't worry about it. And then it will tell you, hey, you need to take over. So it will switch between level 2 and level 3 from time to time. Think about it that way. But level 3 is that kind of system. Level 4 is a car that can drive itself. It fully takes responsibility, but it still has its steering wheel and pedal in case somebody needs to jump on behind it, but it takes full responsibility. Then level 5, it doesn't even have a steering wheel and pedal. It's just a box, and you have no way to interface with the car. It just does it itself. I think Tesla going the level 3 route first is a smart one, because they can continue to gather data while the car drives itself without them having to take full responsibility for the driving in every single condition. From a business decision, that makes a lot of sense. However, from Tesla's grand vision of having, call it a robotaxi network, which is a millions of cars that can drive themselves, giving people rides, they need to go level 4. Because level 3 requires a person behind the steering wheel, level 4 doesn't, right? So level 3 could be like let's hone in the software, the stack with the AI. Let's make sure all the things are sort of ironed out around the edges. We don't have any bugs that are potentially fatal. And then once we get through that, then we go to level 4. I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Let me see if we can do maybe a couple more. Yeah. So from Kratos Slow, question: the challenge will be to understand where is the limit of learning, local inference, hardware 3. Yeah, that's a great point. You know, that's part of, like, you know, 2024 is a huge deal, because if now they've gone with just the again, neural net end-to-end, meaning that AI brain's doing all the work. Exactly. The limit of learning is going to be huge. But in theory, if you really think about it, when it comes to hardware and software here, the limit should be how much data the computer has, if you're not limited by the hardware that's on the car, as far as figuring out what angles the car can analyze. I find it very hard to believe that Tesla wouldn't have made a change to the placement of the cameras by now. If there was something wrong with the placement or the kind of hardware they were using. I know they're using hardware 4, which is sort of an upgrade to hardware 3, and it's a little bit better camera quality and things like that, a little bit faster computer, but it's not a fundamental change to the hardware. You're just getting incrementally better over time, and it becomes relatively easy to swap over time as well. So I think that challenge we'll understand in 2024. Right? If a hardware 3 car by the end of 2024 hasn't improved dramatically on version 12, then we know that the ceiling is not necessarily, in my opinion, the ceiling is not necessarily how much data they have, but the ceiling might be the approach is wrong. But I don't think that's the case. I think conceptually speaking, like if you just use ChatGPT as an example, this is sort of a loose example, but it sort of stands. The amount of improvement a ChatGPT has had since its launch till now, it's insane. And all they're doing, they're just basically just figuring out how to process the data faster. There's no crazy breakthrough here, from what I understand. I might be speaking completely out of my butt here, but it's the incremental improvement using sort of an end-to-end neural net process is insane. And so we should see the same with driving. We should see the same exact thing with driving. You won't have these like oh, look at how much better it's gotten. Oh, it's kind of the same for a while. Oh, look how much better it's gotten. Oh, look, it's kind of the same for a while. It should be like just a straight line of holy crap, it's getting better. And it just be like this. Just getting better, getting better, getting better, getting better. And the more hardware they have and the more data they get, theoretically, they should be able to keep that a rate of improvement the more complex it gets, if that makes any sense. Okay. All right, I'm gonna shut up. I talk so much. Goodbye. Thank you so much for stopping in. Love you very much. I'll see you tomorrow and Wednesday, where we'll cover Tesla's earnings on a live stream for probably like 5 hours. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.